Hello, everyone. Let's put a little light on this subject. All right. You know, I get lots of people questioning me about the things that I do, the way that I have faith, do worship, and some of the things that I do, like first time cooking and mental truth and everything like that, rainbow wisdom. But let's get real. Everything I'm talking about is talking about what I know as the progression of the human mind. Now, the progression of a human mind is something that I like to call two types, that of action or reaction. And for every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction. But there becomes a time when all of our actions are not something new to the world. It's just a repeat. And today's topic is about singularity. What is singularity? Well, technically speaking, singularity is not where there are increments of knowledge being obtained, but a jump exponentially in knowledge obtained. Let's say that in computer life, and we're talking about what I have as a laptop is now a full bank computer. In in the old days, it would took a store, warehouse full of banks and knowledges that would store what I'm saying to produce what we're doing right here. But now I'm doing it on my laptop, and that's because I'm connected to other things. So it was an increment of little steps here, even though it seemed like it, there was a large jump in it. Same thing about singularity in physics. Let's say that the singularity is basing the string theory about gravity and the speed of light and everything to the point to where gravity becomes a finite point to where it becomes infinity. But I laugh at that because if it comes to a point of finite, then there's a point. It's not infinite. So they're kind of contradicting themselves. But either way, they said there is a jump in it. It's not increments, a little bit of studies going on. Same thing they're saying about psychology, that the human mind sometimes doesn't just barely creep up, but it makes a jump in its knowledge and capability, jump in evolution of what the mind is and what it can do. But I say to you again, it's not that we're doing a jump in evolution to a singularity point, but we're repeating the singularity point to where the mind has brought together all this information and it's passed on through our DNA and our genes to our children, and somehow or another they maintain and retain the same knowledge as the adults does. But I say to you is that the kids are able to comprehend at a higher quality because there is a not increment of jumping in the brain and the way it can learn, but exponentially jump in the way the brain can learn. It's like that new kid that say it's a magician with numbers. Even at the age of 3, 4, and 5 years old, he's demonstrating what can be happening. And this is all back to the singularity. Same thing about what we're doing with the currents. Uh, eh, well, yeah, the accelerator, Currents accelerator in Switzerland, when they take and they smash two atoms together, they're hoping to find the singularity of what brought it all together. It's the same thing when they're talking about the God particle that they're looking for. They're looking for that finite point to where they can define that this is where it all started. But bringing all that down to singularity, what does that mean for us? But truthfully, what that means for us is that our knowledge and our base of knowledge sometimes will make these giant leaps forward. Now, I haven't made that leap, but to realize that that leap is coming, because I can see it. Now, in New Worship, I talk about listening to God, that you are the true Word of God. Well, the Word of God talking to me and the power that is above me and all about me, I know watches and takes care of everything that I do, and has brought me to a higher state of, I would say understanding, but I say ability to comprehend things at a higher and faster rate than I normally could. Now, all my life, I've had voices and things going on in my head to where I've gone to psychiatrists to figure out. I've had mental breakdowns, and I've kind of threw out the stigma. I call it the mental illness to call it mental differences. Why? Because there's no two people that think the same way or process thoughts the same way. Therefore, it's not a mental illness. It may be an illness to you because you can't comprehend what's going on or comprehend how I can see things like this. But nonetheless, doesn't mean that I have a mental illness. It means that we have mental differences. Each and every government in the world practice and put laws upon the land are based upon what they feel is the right way. And even those in North Korea and Kim Jong Un and his way of doing things believe that he is 100% right. And there are those followers underneath him that believe that he is right. And then there's people just across the border in China, Asia, South Korea, and all that believes that he's a nutcase. But that's mental differences. But what has all this got to do with singularity? Because singularity happens not because of minute steps, little things that we learn, but in exponentially jump in comprehension of things and able to process them and develop it at a higher context. While people out here trying to look deep into space, it's like a landscaper trimming that box edge. Now he trims it, and if he gets too close to it, picking off leaf of leaf, trying to get the right thing, when he takes a step back and look at it, he'll see that he has gone too far and has missed it all. Then he needs to let that bush grow again and start over. But once he takes a step back before he takes those little leaps and sees the full picture, he can move forward. The same thing is happening in science. There's too many people looking too closely at things and they're missing the big picture. And they're going to be at a point to where what they've made is a mess. And they're going to have to take a step back, leave it alone, let it bush out, and go back into it. Because they're taking minute little steps to grow here and there. When there are those that's coming after us that will take that singularity step, exponentially jump in comprehension, that know they don't have to pluck those little leaves and little parts of the bush off. They can go ahead to a full sculpture of what they're doing with that box head. They can go ahead and do the full sculpture of what really is the singularity of gravity, the singularity of psychology, the singularity of finding the God particle. Oh, there it is. And it's only because we, as a class of humans, right now are on a cusp, on the edge of something that's about to crumble underneath us. And that's going to crumble because of our society and the way that we got it structured. It can't hold much more. It eventually will collapse. That's another reason why I get into prepping, because I see all this just building up. There's a lot of little things that people aren't seeing, lots of little things that people aren't doing. So in society way, we're at a cusp of things. But our children are making the nations of human beings. They are becoming smarter and wiser than what we ever could think or know to be. Just like our computers, they're heading to AI for this new form of intelligence where they can do the things like we can and even produce itself. They believe that that's where it's heading. But in truth, the biggest computer that's ever been made that has all the intelligence and is growing faster than what we ever could think is our brain. Our brains at one time was nothing but a single nerve ending running through the parts of our body, going to our outer parts. Regardless if we had hands or legs or head or whatever, that single nerve fiber was the beginning of our brain. Lots of doctors now know that that was the brain stem, that was the beginning. But even the brain then made a leap of how to store and process this. And that became the middle brain or the center brain, which we now know operates our hearts, our lungs, our involuntary muscles that need, voluntary muscles that need to be regulated constantly outside of our control. And that's there. But then there was another leap in the brain in the process and storing. And that becomes the outer brain in which you're storing and put things. But it started with that single nerve running through our body that sparked it all. And then there was singularity moments, exponentially jumps in reality from one to the other into our brain capacity. And it made several jumps within our evolution of who we become. And it's about to make another fantastic jump again. Our children are smarter, able to learn at such a high rate. That means their comprehension capabilities are off the charts of anything that we know. We cannot register it, nor can we grade it or judge it by levels. by my way of thinking, if we go back in time to the time of Copernicus, I am a freaking genius that he had never thought possible. But then again, in today's society, I'm not that smart. Because some of the children being born today have such great minds, great abilities. And if you want to see some of them, look at the children of the world and the great things that they're capable of doing. All the way from the artists to all kinds, from drawings and paintings and music and writing poetry and acting and all. They are great. They are very, very good. They have made that jump, and we can see it. The ones that are scientifically great, that is above all that we can ask, they are there. So they've exponentially made that jump to the singularity of a human being. That's what that singularity means. Making that jump to grow to a point to where you can put it all together and know where that one answer will come from. Computers cannot keep up or comprehend like we can, even though we can create them. Only means that we have made that jump to be able to do it. But soon we'll make the jump to realize we don't need the computer. We don't need the television. We don't need the phone. We don't need any of that. The next jump, after all this great knowledge, is we're able to connect automatically with these things. Just like we did in the beginning when we had that nerve down our back. We connected with that nerve to all the other electrical stimuluses throughout the world. The whole world is full with these electrical contacts, these electrical stimulus, this outside stimulus that that single human being with that nerve running down was able to do. Now it's made the jump, but there's a point. Remember I talked about where sometimes the actions and reactions, and when the action's going to come up, where there's a human being able to reconnect with that very beginning again to all the energy in the world. And when that happens, they won't need a computer to connect to somebody far off. They won't need a television to show them movies and stuff like that and entertainment. They're not going to need all of it. They will be closer to the singularity than what we ever could possibly think. And that singularity will push us past the point to eternity. Right now, we think eternity happens after we die, and it may be so that it does. We don't know what happens after death, or after our bodies die. This biological bag of water that we're living and traveling in. We don't know what happens after that. We have speculations. We can think about it, but in truth, we don't know. But imagine a child one day born that's able to connect. We've had these children before throughout our world that's been able to connect to the singularity part. One in particular that I'm thinking about is Muhammad. He connected to those of Buddha. They connected to it and they're looking to do it again. But they're a long ways away from it. Just like we're a long ways away from it. That's another one that I can think of. Jesus was able to connect. above all that. And you say, well, how can that be? When Jesus followed God. We don't know that it was God that Jesus followed. It's man that says that. What Jesus connected with was a higher capability and knowledge than any of us could ever think about possession. And with that higher knowledge, it scared everybody down there so bad till they killed him. And the masses killed him. And then the guilt that came after what that, we grew to what we are now. It's out of fear that lots of people do things. This person acting like that, this person acting like that, and we don't know how to comprehend what's going on, so we put it in the classifications of fear. And with that fear, we either fight or run. And most of the time we fight, and we fight with our brains more than we do with our fists and hands. All those rockets and everything going off in the Middle East, it's all going to come to a head because, like I said, we're on the cusp of a society as far as it can go. Eventually, it's going to collapse. That's why I'm prepping. It's all going to collapse. How it collapsed, when it collapsed, we don't know. But you need to be prepared. But the singularity principle that we're looking for deep in space, we've looked too far and we're not able to see. The singularity in which we're trying to find the infinitive of time, we're not going to find it because time is no more than point A to point B. To have infinity is never to have A or B. And we can't get there because we're still thinking about the concept of point A to point B. And you can't do that. You have to step out of that to get to the singularity. But like I said, there are those coming that will be able to step out of it and jump to the top of all the singularity and everything that we say and do. Now, I believe in a higher power. I always have. Only because from the first of my life, as far back as I can remember, and that's pretty far back, it's not as far back as some children being born today that can remember sucking on a bottle or teething and had recall of memories like they do. Some can even recall the memories of their mothers, their mother's mothers, their grandmothers, and all that. I've always believed that children's memory, even though the brain is fully developed and our heart is fully developed within the first and second trimester, that the third trimester is its brain is growing from the knowledge that has come from its mother and from its mother's mother and its mother's mother. Not about the DNA of what type of sex it is. It's all about that brain growing in. And the only way he gets it is through his mother. And mother, most of the time, don't even pay attention to it, just lets it happen. And don't even know that's happening until the baby's born and they find out. Well, he's talking about this, or she's talking about that. How can they talk like that? That's not the way I am. I didn't learn like that. And the children get frustrated, mad, upset, and they go off angry, half-cocked. And it's societal that's on the cusp of things. These children that have grown and made that big leap, exponentially leap, not minute, but exponentially leap, because their brain is able to comprehend things at a higher rate, see what their parents are doing, and start thinking, well, it's nonsense, because they can calculate in their heads the emotions and things going on faster and higher than their parents ever could comprehend little movements of the eyes and lips and the body, read body English and body language faster than their parents ever could, only because the brain has made that jump closer to the singularity. If you don't believe me, go up to any 16-year-old, male, female, doesn't matter what race, whatever, and look at them and say, whatever, and watch their response. This is David. Remember, singularity only talks about the movement between one, not as incremental, but exponential movement. What have you witnessed lately that you could say, yes, that was exponentially? Anyway, have a good 4th of July. Bye bye.